GM guys, we're back with another weekly roundup with Rashid. Hamza and Ishan, I think, are Hamza is back from his trip from Singapore. I don't think he's gonna make it, and everyone else is at permissionless. So, I mean, still an exciting week in the markets. A lot is happening, and everything has rebounded nicely. And the war stuff is finally put to rest, and they have de-escalated it. And Trump is victory lapping, and uh, it's kind of even though like a good rebound, be what people's expectations are and what actually happening is kind of deviating. So, gonna be interesting one. Hope you're all doing great. What about you, Rachit? How are you feeling?
Bro, I've just been looking on Instagram with all like the Trump memes. I saw the NATO chief call him daddy, and that was really funny. Like, and he ended up clarifying, like, no, I wasn't calling him daddy. Yeah, bro, it's been entertaining on Instagram. Like, it's kind of sucks so small. Obviously, I'm not trading, by the way. Like, I always suck in like these unpredictable market conditions, and I always lose money. I'm still holding hype virtuals on Solana. Yeah.
Check
So that's like
this.
is the same
Is
is
it, wait,
one. Oh yeah. Yeah, bro. That was hilarious, bro. Yeah.
it's insane, man. I can't believe this. Like, the first comment is, "Dog, we are living in a simulation." Like, it's just crazy. Uh, yeah.
Bro.
Anyway, let's get into markets a bit and talk about like how Bitcoin is doing. And yeah, let me just open CoinGecko. Yeah, I mean, 100K was indeed the support, right? Like we talked about it previously. Like if markets are bullish, Bitcoin has to hold 100K, and it just deviated, like kind of gave fake out. It went to 98K, I believe, and then just immediately kind of re-reversed. So that's very good thing. And it's obviously very news-driven stuff. Like uh, once Trump was making some deals with these guys, and uh, they're like, Iran is going to attack U.S. bases in UAE and stuff, and they basically it was like, you know, you attacked us, we have to retaliate in some way or the other. Let's just do it in a way that no one gets hurt, and we just have we can show face. So that's how like immediately market started to rebound on that news. I mean, like Trump tweeted, both countries are open to negotiating and it's time for peace, and everything started to like gap up 10%, 20%. Alts are up 30%. So stuff like you know, uh, say is up 40%. I think we call this in our Telegram chat, and Aptos has done well as well. It's up like at 30% or something. So uh, I mean, even though we are at like this, we have this good, uh, you know, everything is going up. I still feel like we are just going to range, right? We are in this still in this range, and for us to like really start, trending up again, we have to close above 110K or make a new all-time high, and then we might see continuation. Otherwise, we're just gonna chop and do nothing until August. I feel that's something like it's everyone's on, either betting on one of those things where uh, people are bullish because all this war stuff is over. Tariffs are not, until August. Then we don't need to care about them. So everyone is still hoping for a bullish kind of continuation. I just feel like, in my opinion, we just uh, even though that war stuff is over, what happened before the war, right? Like markets were still weak, they were still stalling, and they were trending down, and the war just escalated everything that was going to happen anyway. So I think we're just back to the normal programming where we just stop for the summer, and certain alts will outperform, like you know. Your syrups of the world, and Hyperliquid obviously is doing well still, and it's holding, you know, 37, 38. Even though I'm a little bearish right now, I don't want to like buy here. Uh, we called it around 31 was a good level. Uh, but yeah, overall, I feel like the worst is behind us. Like uh, we're just gonna chop. Alts are gonna continue to bleed. Bitcoin has infinite build, and Ethereum is still very so weak. Uh, but yeah, man, what do you think? Like, what is your thoughts like after the war got ended and markets kind of showed this strong move?
That's an interesting one. I still think we go higher from here. Um, yeah, that's like I will always be like a perpetual bull. Um, like that's sort of how I think about it. I think one thing that was interesting this week was the whole Bitcoin mortgage thing, where people in the states can now buy a house against their Bitcoin. I think you remember when we had Sid and the Bima guys on the podcast, and they were talking about this whole TradFi layer on top of Bitcoin and DeFi, where it's like the banking system, but it's DeFi on the back end. I think this BTC mortgage thing is like the first level to that. Um, and then you'll see a lot more, like financial instruments being built around this. I think this is naturally bullish for Bitcoin. Um, but yeah, no, apart from that, like I have no in general market thoughts this week. I thought it was less choppy than last week. And then one thing that I do monitor is the number of CAs, like meme coin notifications I see. It was definitely higher than last week. So I definitely think like the pump fund transfers are coming back and people are actively engaging in those things, which is also interesting. Like, I don't know if we'll see that come back, but yeah, that's what I've been saying.
Yeah, man, 100%. Like another thing like that I want to do, I think it's like it's gonna be like a major thing that people should pay more attention to is prediction markets. Like on a high level, like we have seen like two big funding rounds this week. Just yesterday, I think, Polymarket raises near 200 million, I think led by Founders Fund and at 1 billion valuation. And Kalshi raises, I think, 185 million at 2 billion valuation. And these things, like these two, come like protocol, like whatever you want, like call it, prediction markets are very uniquely positioned. I feel even though that Polymarket is way ahead in like the whole prediction market race, but Kalshi has an advantage when it comes to the regulatory side of things in the US. I feel like they can do those partnerships and like they work with Robinhood, right? Like they power the prediction markets of Robinhood. So even though they have like that, like I've seen so many people say that Kalshi has a better product than Polymarket, but people will still trade on Polymarket because liquidity begets liquidity, and that is a moat for them. And even though it's better, everything on Kalshi, people will still choose Polymarket, which is interesting. Uh, yeah, I mean, firstly, like, what are your thoughts on these massive funding announcements?
I think it's super interesting, bro. Like, especially, I think the next biggest IPO, or like the next big IPO that gets crypto Twitter involved to the level of Circle, I think it's probably Polymarket if they make through. I don't think Polymarket launches a token. Like they will target for an IPO. I think other teams in that bracket probably, I want to say Securitize or any of these like institutional tokenization platforms will also aim for that. So I think these sort of big raises signal towards those outcomes being more probable, which I think is a bullish sign. Um, but other than that, I've been thinking a lot about prediction markets this past few weeks, and I think that the current product that we have in terms of this being PvP, I think it'll go away in like the next 3 or 4 years. Where if you think about Polymarket, like as you said, like even though Kalshi might be a better product, I haven't used Kalshi, I've only used Polymarket, but even if it's a better product, people will want to trade where there's liquidity, right? And the way that Polymarket factors odds, it's like liquidity for, liquidity against, and it's sort of based on that model. I think all of this will go away to a point where there's like a really specific AI model that can predict any odds out there. So let's say, for example, what are the odds of Ronaldo to score 4 goals in tomorrow's match? And then the AI model will give you like an output of like, hey, these are the odds. And then you can bet against the model. I think we'll slowly go from this model to that model where then liquidity isn't a problem at all because you have like one central hub of liquidity against which everyone is trading. Um, I think that AI, like I've been trying to find someone to build this out myself for a while. I think that's a bit far away. In the meantime, like I think Polymarket's model works really well. But it is really interesting. Like, do you remember when the politics thing was coming at an end, like Trump's election cycle, and then everyone was like, "Oh my God, Polymarket's gonna fail." And the way that they've sort of come out now as like, "Oh, we're gonna partner with X, we're going to partner with Perplexity," and it's like odds on everything. I think that model's super interesting. I think this we'll see a lot more coming out of prediction markets for sure.
Yeah, I think like before I kind of add on to that. I don't think that Polymarket will do an IPO. I think they'll do a token uh, because
Are you
they don't
farming?
do KY. Yeah, yeah. Because if you want to do like an IPO, you have to KYC, right? You have to have KYC in place, and Polymarket doesn't have that. So uh, that's why it's more used, and I think they'll do a token next year. Uh, and also like one of the reasons why Polymarket is more popular than Kalshi is I see Polymarket more on Instagram than I see on Twitter. And that is saying a lot, right? Like, yes, I do follow it on Twitter. I see all the big posts, but the virality aspect for attracting retail, I don't think is there on Twitter yet. I mean, the sophisticated folks, they are finding inefficiencies in some of these odds and playing that game. But it's usually people who are like, oh, this big event is happening. How can I
No, it
bet on
doesn't.
this?
But it doesn't matter if people are finding inefficiencies and they're exploiting the model because Polymarket, like,
I don't think that's exploiting, right? Like you,
it's
like
not
for example,
exploiting. Yeah, it's
it's not
exploiting.
exploiting.
It's exploiting if if you're on like a betting protocol like a sports book and you're betting against the sports book, then it's exploiting because you're basically taking money away from the house. Or I mean, you've sort of
Yeah.
gamed this. But here it's the pricing is determined based on the liquidity of both sides, right? So I wouldn't say like I wouldn't say that it's exploitation. It's just you got a good deal because someone was taking the other side. That's basically it.
No, no, what I'm saying by inefficiency is people are like, for example, the New York mayor election thing, right? Everyone was like, no way this person like socialist is someone. I have no like much details on it. I have not. I don't live in New York. I have no clue what's happening there. But from things I've read, no one anticipated that someone who has no one heard of this person, Dani, he's gonna win. And what people didn't realize is that New York has changed a lot over the last few years, and the whole ideology and all that stuff, in people, the people who have moved out, they are no longer who kind of represent New York over the last 10, 20 years. So that has changed, right? The inefficiency of that thought process was not reflecting in the odds. That's why it was like 25% chance he was going to win. So that people
Yeah,
who
I agree.
understood that, people who understood that discrepancy and oh my God, this is not priced in at all, right? They take advantage of those odds and win big, right? So I think back to like the original point of virality, like so many of these insane poly market like betting like different prediction markets, they go viral on Instagram a lot for me, at least what I see. And they're like, this big event is happening. The event itself is a viral thing, and how can you bet on it? And it's like, like uh it's a way to express your emotion, right? Like after knowing about an event or something, you want to see it happen or not. Polymarket creates that channel for you to bet on it and express your whatever you're thinking. That's why I think like it is more popular than Kalshi. Uh, but I think that it is a category where there can be multiple winners, and I'm like even with the Robinhood under for Kalshi, I don't think they're really doing that much volume. Last I saw, they do 1/6 of the volume for Polymarket, which is just insane when you think about it. And yeah, I think for now, I think one of the best airdrop possibility is Polymarket, in my opinion. Like even if they don't, I don't know,
Yeah.
right? It's like a good bet, right? Like good bet to take on, right? Like for example, Hyperliquid. Like how many people were really thinking this is going to be a massive airdrop or something? Very few people, and they all got like $1 million in airdrop because they were just doing insane amount of volume. Even if I don't think like you don't need to do, you know, like you can just do 10 million in volume over the next 6 months or something and get a good airdrop if they ever do it. Uh, and I think like these insane events that have been happening over the last 6 months, right? The tariffs thing, which lasted, I don't know, 1 month or something. Uh, these are things that people could easily understand and bet on what's happening, right? Uh, would Trump do this much tariffs? Yes or no? Like same thing with the war stuff that's been happening over the last 2.5 weeks, or something, right? And these are things that are happening globally, and everyone has a way to bet on these things how they pan out. And it's also another signal for investors in retail, right? You don't need to go and check TradingView and stuff. You can just open Polymarket and see what are the odds on de-escalation and stuff, right? Like based on what's happening, you can get an idea of what's how the market can react. And it
Yeah.
can also be another. It can also be like the other way, right? For example, uh, when Trump said U.S. might enter the war, the probability was only 30% or 40%, right? It just feels like, and at that point, people were like, no way US is going to enter. But people who understood markets in a more, like, they were looking at commodities and all that stuff, and they were watching oil go up, and they're like, yeah, US might enter the war and do something. And it immediately shot to 75% odds, right? So I think there's like so many different ways to participate in prediction markets. And like something like this, right? Uh, yeah, I saw this like Mark, someone who has like done insanely well on Polymarket stuff over the last 2 weeks I saw, right? So he like same thought process I was sharing, right? Like it shot up to 70% from 40-30%. So anyone who watches these markets more carefully can find these inefficiencies, in my opinion. Uh, but yeah, it
Yeah.
depends on how much liquidity is there in each of these markets. Like this is like a big event, the war stuff, but some of the other things might not be the same. Uh, but yeah, it's like an interesting space, I feel.
It has become more like a lot of I've been seeing on Instagram, a lot of my Indian feed is also like Polymarket. You know what was really interesting? Like back when you remember when the Indian Premier League was suspended because of like India Pakistan tension, right? A lot of influencers started to make reels on like, oh my god, all these degenerates have stopped betting on cricket matches and now they're betting on if India will attack Pakistan or vice versa, or like basically war stuff. And people were just talking about how you can do that on Polymarket. I thought that was really interesting because it was the first time a lot of people were sending me crypto related content and they didn't even realize it was crypto related, and it made me a lot more bullish on Polymarket. That was also the first time I started believing in like Luca's Pudgy thesis. Have you heard the Pudgy thesis, KG? And like why
This,
they do like all this non-crypto native stuff?
yeah, yeah, like the Jeffs and
Yeah.
having their IP in different ways, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like super interested. Yeah, we can talk about Pudgies a
So
little.
let me okay,
Probably,
so that's also another thing that happened this week. Like Pudgy Penguin on at the NYSC with VanEck. I thought that was super cool. So Luca's thesis is essentially that it's not about if my mother or sister or father, anyone that I know is interacting with like pudgy gifs or sending me pudgy content, it's not a signal that they're into pudgy and they should be buying. It's a signal that they're enjoying it and I'm early. And whenever someone sends you pudgy adjacent content, it should invoke a feeling in anyone that's crypto native like, hey, I need to buy this, I need to get in. That's basically what Luca's aiming for. I think I shared this in our Telegram group too. There's going to be a Pudgy ETF now, which I thought, which I thought is interesting to say the least.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
I
that's
think it's basically like he's just saying that all the biggest players with the deepest pockets, if they get a sense of that, oh my God, Pudgy Penguins has reached a level that everyone around me is talking about it, so I should have some exposure, right? Like it's the same with all these, same with Bitcoin as well, right? Like it's like Michael Saylor is doing it, and all these bigger guys are doing it, so even some of the biggest S&P 500 companies, even they are thinking like maybe even we should buy some Bitcoin, right? It's just that kind of effect, I feel. Uh, but yeah, what I'm really curious about because of this whole Labubu trend that's happening in Asia, I'm like really curious like how is Pudgy Toys doing? Like what's their revenue been like? And I don't
yeah,
think
bro.
we have got I don't
No
think we
one's
got like a new, no one really, I don't know, like I haven't seen anyone like in the first few weeks or 1 months, my whole timeline was flooded with people buying 10, 20 Pudgy Penguin boxes or whatever. I don't see that anymore. Uh, so it'll be really
yeah.
curious. But yeah, this was a cool movement, but I also think it's like a top signal. uh,
You think so?
I don't know,
Well,
man.
yeah. In retrospect, it does look like it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that is just, I don't know, it just gives a
I
weird
think,
feeling.
I
I
think
don't
we've
know.
started to become tuned to the idea that everything that's like bullish is like a top signal. Like, I think after everything that we've been through past 2 years, like we're just fine tuned to think that way. Um,
Yeah, man.
I don't know, bro. Like, you could, I think you could say the same about. Did you see that? There was this fund out of the UAE that's putting like 100 million into um, World Liberty Finance, like Trump's project. I thought that was a top signal. Like, like a random UAE fund that I've never heard of called Aqua One is investing into like Trump's project. Um, bro, okay, so okay, I want to change topics here a little bit. Uh, did you see that Polychain tweet from Vanacharma where he was like everything Polychain invests into is like down only? I thought that was a bit harsh, to be honest. Like Polychain's definitely made a lot of money out of all these projects. What was more interesting was this tweet from Pavel. Let me find it real quick. Basically, what he said was he basically said that Polychain invested 20 million into Celestia, and then they sold more than 80 million worth of tokens from staking rewards. Uh, and I think that's crazy, bro. Like, I think the amount of hate that you know Celestia Dimension and this whole ecosystem is getting is a bit wild. Um,
I think
yeah,
I mean, I'm not gonna say it's like warranted or anything, but I get it, right? Like, the frustration and the whole, the dream that was sold and never delivered kind of thing. I mean, forget about the airdrops, right? Like, after a point, you have to realize that you're not going to get any. The whole point of that airdrops thing happening was all these new chains are going to use Celestia and they're going to drop some tokens to people staking, right? But we haven't seen that many new chains use Celestia. I mean, obviously, there are so many chains, but the ones that have PGE'd and done well. So it's kind of, it can't just depend on the airdrops. But what people really don't like is the dumping of tokens every fucking day and for years straight. And I mean, it's like the most ridiculous chart I have ever seen. I mean, bro, like
No,
just
don't
look
bring
at
up.
this.
I don't want to see it, bro. Um,
It's like
it is what it is,
this.
bro. So that was also interesting this week. I thought, oh yeah, SpaceX on Solana. I think Solana's been doing a really great job with like the institutional narrative. Like every tokenization company that I talk to, or like every potential asset manager that wants to come on the blockchain is now talking about Solana. So I think that's super interesting. One thing that I did want to talk to you about, like, why are we seeing syrup all over the timeline? I've just been seeing so many KOLs just talk about syrup left, right. What's that about?
Yeah, they're like the comeback story in DeFi for this cycle. So it's not like they're doing something new or very. It's that uh, the narrative for them is here, and they are kind of leveraging that. So Syrup was first Maple. They are they were first. The token was Maple. So they did a rebrand. It was first called Maple Finance, right? So uh, I mean, it's still called Maple Finance, but they just changed it to Syrup Fi or something. So they did a rebrand. They changed a little of their positioning and how they were perceived in terms of yield. And with all this institutional interest for Bitcoin, where you can get yield for Bitcoin, and over collateralized lending again is becoming kind of a thing where people are, their TVL increased a lot. So it is like kind of a no-brainer play. It's like it was so undervalued, right? It was just 200 million or 250 million or something. Whereas it's other DeFi players that are established, they have been around for 5 7 years. They are in billions. So I think it was just like a natural repricing. I feel uh, in terms of DeFi getting re-rated as a whole category, right? Obviously, the leaders are going to be the leaders like Aave and stuff. I don't think people comparing Aave and Syrup, it is like apples to apples comparison. Like I think there are different products, and I'm really bullish on Syrup, right? I think they're gonna do well in the coming months. Uh, the only, I think it already pumped like 5x from the bottom or something, so
No,
I
really.
wouldn't add here.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, it did really well, bro. Like over the last month or so. Let me just pull up the
Bro.
chart. Yeah, I mean they're everywhere right now.
Yeah,
They're
I've been seeing them
I
all over the
mean,
time.
yeah, they're like really, really. Yeah, just look at this. I mean, it's like one of the best looking charts, right? Like what other chart looks like this?
It's pretty cool, bro.
Everything is see it just almost perfectly. Yeah, I think they are like well positioned and like a lot of big players. Like the 1000x guys, I've seen them talking about it a lot. Blockworks, they have been talking about it a lot. But yeah, I'm excited. Like as a DeFi as a whole category, I'm excited. More than Syrup, I like Maker because it has a lot of buyback stuff. Uh, but yeah, I'm bullish Syrup. I think I think that the whole collateralized lending, over collateralized lending is a space still very. I mean, it was so huge last cycle. This cycle,
Yeah,
we haven't seen that expansion in credit. So I think we will see that with protocols like this. Uh, but yeah, I'm I'm preparing a video on Syrup how they've done this whole
you're
from
finally
like
doing, bro.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what? Like, if we can find someone who can create like AI avatars of you and me, we can do so many of these videos. But bro, okay. So one thing that I do want to point out, okay, bring this tweet up real quick. Um, I've been thinking a lot about this tweet from Taran. He's been talking about, like, just bring the tweet up, um, if you can, real quick. I put a lot of thought into like what this sticker could actually be, and then I realized like there's only one chain that's come out of Asia that has like a significant float. Um, but it hasn't crashed since um, since it's TGE'd. If you bring up the tweet,
What's
I'll
the
tell you.
tweet?
Oh, it's in the
Where's the
private.
tweet?
It's in the private chat,
Okay, sorry. Yeah, okay.
bro. So you know how everyone's been talking about the fact that whenever an L1, L2 launches, it just goes to zero, and like price action is just horrible. Um, open up Story Protocol on CoinGecko for me now. Like I would, you would actually be surprised to look at the story chart. I've been looking at the chart for like a couple of days. I've been thinking about it. Um, I think Taran is talking about Story Protocol in this tweet. I don't know for sure. Go to max it out for me. Yeah, like, look at that, bro. Um, it hasn't crashed that much.
Yeah, I mean, it still has like 3 billion FTV and 800 million market cap.
Yeah,
I mean, I still think it's going to trend to zero. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think these coins are like a good. If you like to pair trade, they're always going to be on the short side of the trade, right? Long Bitcoin, short this thing. Long hype, short this, short stuff like this. Uh, but I don't know. Like, I don't really have strong opinions on IP chains yet. Uh, to have
I
like,
so what I'm basically saying based on his tweet and the way that he's positioning it, I've been thinking a lot about bidding story recently. That's what I'm saying. That's something that I'm looking into
maybe.
and thinking. Yeah, we should get Taran on the pod, bro. I've messaged him so many times. Um, yeah, I
Yeah, I
think Hamza.
mean,
Well, we should ask him on. I think him
yeah, I
talking
think
about.
like for A16Z to back them 3 times. Uh, yeah, I think Taran is saying here it's the only company they've backed 3 times since Coinbase. So
Yeah,
that is saying something. Uh, yeah, man, stuff like this is something like hard to say, right? Like, and some like my kind of always philosophy when it comes to something like this that you don't really understand, you don't really get it, is I always look at Solana trade. I
okay.
always look at Solana trade like even if you didn't understand the rotation and from Ethereum to all these L2s to a chain like Solana in 2023, you don't have to buy it at $8. You don't have to buy it at 20. You don't have to buy it at 30. Even if you didn't buy it at 50, by the time you like understood that and used the chain, and you're like, oh my god, now I get it. There is still a trade for you, right? Even if you
Bro,
ended
okay.
at $40, it still did like 8x or something, right?
Yeah,
So I think like
100.
all these like shiny chains right now, they may just slow bleed to a point where nothing happens, everyone forgets about them, and suddenly some kind of activity kind of they are known for that particular thing. In the case of Story, let's say they're doing some insane stuff on the IP side, right? And for Solana, it was memes, right? That kicked off everything. 2 years back, I don't think Solana did even it had no activity, right? Like it didn't make any money fees wise. And right
Bro,
and right now
Solana,
is
Solana was pretty big on like the NFT thing. Before
no no
the
I
whole
mean like in the bear market, right? In the bear market, like 2 years back, 3 years back, like there's not that much activity, but
when you
uh
mean bear market, do you mean like post FTX season? Like what
yeah
define the period?
yeah post FTX after FTX collapsed November
No, so the biggest
2022.
problem with Solana, like so the biggest problem with Solana was that Solana's biggest DeFi protocol serum was, well, it was FTXed, right? And then you basically had a chain where there was a lot of NFTs, but there was no DeFi. And that's when the Caminos, the margin fies uh, came in. Like the Jito airdrop basically gave everyone stuff to play around with, and that's how it sort of came back, right? I think Solana's case is really different because I don't think we've ever seen a comeback story that poetic ever. Um, yeah, bro. I
Yeah,
think it's interesting.
I just think like any of these big chains, they're just repricing to their decent value. Like Story Protocol at $8 billion was way overshot, right? Like it's just going to its intended value. I feel whenever it does find its I don't know some kind of PMF and use cases and activity starts seeing, I think like it's worthy to kind of pay attention. But I don't see it yet. I don't think anyone. I think everyone would agree that it's too early to say or anything for them. I think they're making cool partnerships. I've seen them like onboard some of the biggest labels and stuff like that, creators in Asia. So that's interesting. Uh, but yeah, I don't really have that much strong opinions on IP yet. Uh, I still think it's gonna be a few horse race. Uh, but yeah, I mean it's gonna be like fun thing, man. Like and also like besides all that, I think I'm still focusing mainly on Hyperliquid. Uh,
Yeah, bro.
I just think, yeah, I just think like we're gonna see some really cool new projects leverage these builder codes, and I'm excited to see what happens. I think this summer we're gonna get some really cool uh, apps from them, and also like talking about like trading stuff. Have you seen Euphoria on MegaETH?
No.
I think this is like the most normie thing that's gonna happen, and I'm just so bullish on this thing. Just the UI, how everything is changing. Um, so look at this. So how you trade this
Oh,
thing is
yeah, I've seen that. You tweeted about this as well. Yeah, I saw that. How does
yeah.
it work?
So
How do you get around with it though?
basically like you have to tap to trade, right?
Like,
Where you think price is going. I don't know the time. I haven't used it. I don't think anyone has gotten access yet.
okay.
Many people haven't, but you are basically predicting where the price will go next, and if it hits your like grid, and
It's like mini
it,
sweeper, but price.
yeah, exactly. Like, it's just so creative and it's
That's
just
so
so
cool, bro.
addictive.
Yeah,
Exactly
this is
right.
cool.
Like I think this thing has like real potential. Like all like that's why I said like in a couple months back why I'm bullish on MegaETH over any other chain at the moment is because they have these differentiated apps. They have noise that is trading trends. They have this thing. They have few more gaming stuff.
Like
Which is definitely
which raised like
yeah,
15.
yeah. They are also like very fast pub decks. They raised 15 million from Paradigm. So I don't know, man. Like this thing is just like trading on crack.
Yeah,
I
bro.
mean,
Bro.
it's just so cool. Like, uh,
Yeah,
that's really cool.
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's it from us today. I hope you guys had fun. And yeah, any last words? That's it before we end it.
Yeah, bro. That's all good for me. Next week we'll get Hamza on. We'll talk about the virtuals event he was at in Singapore. I think that'll be pretty cool.
100%. See you guys next week.
All right.
Peace.